Welcome, FNUSA57 here, once again on my Xbox One, to bring you yet another video. In this video, I will be showing you how to unlock the Outrider First Class Rare Achievement on the game, Outriders. So, once again, we're back on this game after taking a bit of a break due to all of the bugs and glitches and crashes and problems that this game has had, to get one of the last and arguably the lowest unlock percentage achievement, with now that the game's been out for a few months, still less than a 1% unlock rate, which is pretty low considering the game has reached over like 3.5 million players, unique players or something like that. And of course I do have plenty of achievement guides for all other topics on this video, or on different videos on this game, I should say. And there's several different ways to get this achievement. Now, this achievement, technically speaking, is one that you could unlock organically. And what I mean by that is you could unlock it just through playing the game and farming and all of that stuff. But considering this game's lack of an end game, which that's a story for a separate video, we're just going to go over how to unlock this achievement as quickly as possible for all of you achievement hunters out there. Now, depending on what class you're playing, if you go to accolades, you're going to see a separate set of 42 different accolades associated with each of the four classes: Technomancer, Pyromancer, Trickster, and Devastator, with the top three classes in the game pretty much being the Technomancer, Trickster, and Pyromancer. And I would say for the most played class, it's pretty much tied between Technomancer and Trickster. Of course, there are people that do play all the classes, but it doesn't really matter what class you use. The strategy that I go over in this video will work for any of the classes. So if you're strictly an achievement hunter, you're going to have to do all of these different accolades specifically under the Technomancer or your respective tree. For this video, I'll be using my Technomancer. Now, you only have to get a class to its last skill unlock, which sounds a little bit funny, and I'll explain that in a second. But the reason for that is basically every single one of these skills and accolades is associated with using a specific skill. So as you can see here, we have master a branch of the Technomancer tree, which obviously that does require you to get some extra skill points in order to do that. So more than likely you'll have to get to around a class level of, say, 24 or close to it, but you can always respec for free, so it's not really that big of a deal. Don't worry about wasting points. You can spend the points, get the achievement, and then not worry about it. We also have to use Blighted Turret, Cold Snap, Fixing Wave, Blighted Rounds, Pain Launcher, Cryo Turret, Shrapnel, pretty much all of the abilities, and more than likely you're going to get a fair deal of these just organically through playing the game. You will also have to get this last one for complete the highest tier of all accolades for your respective class. Now, the one for maxing out a tree, as covered in my previous video, is for unlocking the very last skill node in one of the three categories. As far as the skills, when you reach like level 22, you'll get your last skill, or at least that's the way it used to be. And then of course you can have 3 skills slotted at any given time. Now, if you are playing the Technomancer, the hardest one, in my opinion, to actually get done is going to be the Fixing Wave skill. And the reason for that is when you're playing by yourself, it really doesn't give you that much health back. So to heal the required amount of health for the max level of the accolade takes quite a while to do that. And we're going to touch a little bit on how you can do that easier, with the key thing there of it restores 33% of max health to all players and 50% of health to your turrets regardless of the distance. So you definitely want to be using this skill and working on either the Cryo Turret or the Blighted Turret accolade at the same time. And then if you're playing in co-op, you'll have more people that you can heal, and it makes it easier. Chances are most builds you're going to use this skill on anyways, so it's not really one to worry about. The pain launcher, shrapnel, and cold snap are ones that I don't particularly use, but you can get them. It's not really that big of a deal. So for this particular thing, we're going to go ahead and swap out a skill, which you have to highlight the skill you want to swap out by pressing A on it to remove the skill, and then highlight the skill that you wish to assign to that slot that you just removed a skill from, press A on it, and you can see the skill is now active. So Tool of Destruction is the last one that I have to do. I should mention one note, for those of you that may not be aware of this already, gear does have different effects. So there are different mods on gear that can directly affect the specific ability or skill that you're using. So just keep that in mind. Like Mr. Fix-It, Fixing Wave, activating the skill grants you and your allies 100% armor bonus and 30% resistance bonus for 5 seconds, as an example. Now what we want to do is we want to get that final accolade to go ahead and unlock the achievement. I should mention that you do not have to be worried about going through and getting to the quote end game of the game, which is expeditions. You don't have to be worried about that. It's not needed for this particular achievement. There's actually several ways that you can do this. So I need to kill 1,000 enemies. If we highlight that, you can see I'm at 985. I have various videos showcasing different spots along the way through the campaign that you can do this, but we're going to be using the same technique for all of those. The only thing that I'm going to quickly note is that you can do expeditions if you do unlock the expedition. And what you want to do is like Heart of the Wild, when it's available. Heart of the Wild is extremely easy to do with tons and tons and tons of beast-like enemies. And if you drop the world tier down in level, or I should say the CT, not world tier, but the actual challenge tier, if you drop it down to 1, they'll be relatively easy to do if you want to do this in expeditions. For me, I find there to be literally no point, not even in the slightest, in actually doing that. So I'm going to show you 2 of these spots that are better for doing this. So first of all, we're going to need to travel to a different zone. And if you've seen the previous videos on my channel, you'll know that there's a couple points that are really, really good for farming, but they're earlier in the game. So when we are actually back here in the forest, there's a particular quest, Predator to Prey. That is a really good quest for farming titanium. You'll notice that I covered that in my How to Farm Titanium video. And even before that, there's another method that we can use, which is at the Dead Rock Pass, and the quest is called Nature's Call. Even prior to that, there is an option for farming it in the first city. However, it's not quite as efficient. But so you can actually get a lot of your accolades done even as early as the first city. For the purposes of this video, though, we're going to go ahead and showcase the Dead Rock Pass, because in previous videos, I have showcased the first city method and the forest stronghold method. Alright, sorry for that bit of a crashing delay there. Despite the most recent patch notes saying they fixed many of the crashing issues, they sadly did not, and this game has crashed on me repeatedly, simply trying to fast travel. So anyways, as I said, we're going to do the Dreadlock Pass, or Dread Rock Pass, I should say. We can skip this dialogue, accept the quest, accept to replay it, and then we can track it, and we can now fast travel. All we need is our handy dandy fast travel banner, and then we can go ahead and get right up next to where we need to go, which is down here in the log storage site. So the closest fast travel point is this frosty area down here. Hopefully you don't get disconnected, Because unfortunately on the Xbox One consoles, this game has become actually more unstable than it was at launch, which is kind of surprising, and you wouldn't think that would actually happen, but it is. Now, like I said, you don't have to use this particular method or this particular spot, but this is the easiest, fastest way to do it at the earliest point in the game, and your character level should basically be to the point that you're able to do this. The other method is you could simply use the abilities. So what we're going to do, especially since we don't have blighted rounds on, is we're going to head down this way, and we're going to do the most important thing that we need to do right here before we enter the next area. This way the enemies will reflect the appropriate level. We are going to go and decrease the world tier. So obviously we have world tier 15 unlocked. That doesn't really matter. We're just going to play on world tier 1, which will give us the lowest and weakest enemies that we can possibly fight. This works for any area of the game except for expeditions, because expeditions is obviously challenge tier or CT level instead of world tier. There's also an ammo restock box if you need it. Now, the benefit of doing it with this particular mission is due to the fact that this mission is the easiest to actually farm. The other mission that you can do in the first city takes longer to farm, and the mission that you do in the forest also takes longer to farm because you have to reset it. So it's better for titanium, but not as good for sheer kills. So go ahead and kill the first few enemies in whatever form your heart desires. Talk to the guy stuck inside the outhouse, which, just, side note, that is the best built shithouse I have ever seen, if it can keep all of these beasties away. Fine. You're going to have another objective that you have to interact with, which this basically gives us a save point before we interact with this generator, and it also refreshes our skill cooldowns, but yeah, there's the crashing issue that I told you guys about, so we'll see you in a second. So you'll notice that we are once again walking back to the generator because, of course, the game crashed on us. This is now the 15th crash in the course of making this video. So it's getting more than ridiculous. But what we're going to do, if your game doesn't crash on you, now we are going to have about 45 enemies, roughly, to deal with, and they're all going to be, for the most part, these very little weak beast infantry type creatures. You can mow them down very quickly, and you can farm them to get your achievement. So there's the achievement unlocking. Outrider, first class, complete all class related accolades for any class. Now, I do hope the video helped, and because we are all slaves to that YouTube algorithm, make sure that you smash that like button, and of course subscribe for more content, as that does greatly help me out with the searchability of videos here on YouTube. Just to help out and to also feed that YouTube algorithm a bit more, what we're going to do is we are going to showcase all of the different enemy spawns so that you get an idea for at which point you need to reset, and I will cover exactly how to reset this. So what you're going to want to do if you're farming kills with a specific skill is to simply go ahead and use that skill, get the kills, wait for the skill to come off of cooldown, rinse and repeat, super easy. You shouldn't have any problems, especially on the lower world tier. You'll also find that there's plenty of alphas that spawn, and you can kill them, they count. Basically, you're going to keep killing the enemies to the point that only 1 or 2 enemies are left on the field. You might have to go search for them a little bit just to make sure, simply due to the fact that some of the toxic enemies will actually hide and try to stay at range and shoot you. Now, to speed this up as much as possible, I'm just going to shoot these enemies. I'm not going to rely on skill damage. And you'll notice that we now have more enemies spawning. spawning from the side specifically, so we can go ahead and eliminate those. As I said, it's about 45 enemies in total on average if you're playing solo. If you're playing in co-op, obviously the enemy's health and damage resistance increases, plus the total volume of enemies increases as well. Now, the really sad thing with this game crashing so much is it's extremely frustrating, and it's turned this probably just over maybe 10-minute video into an hour worth of recording. So, as you can see here, basically there's no more enemies spawning, and what you want to do is you want to die so that you can respawn at the checkpoint right before you activate the generator. This way you can continue farming progress towards your accolades. The easiest way to do this is to go ahead and switch your world tier. Generally around world tier 6 is more than sufficient to be killed by just one creature remaining, as long as you do not do any damage to that creature or have too many defensive attributes stacked on your gear. It can take a little bit with health regen, but that one creature will usually be more than sufficient to do the job and kill you, at which point you go ahead and respawn right before activating the generator. Go back and switch your world tier from 6 down to 1 to continue the farming process. You'll also get some gear, but the gear isn't really worth very much. If you should fail to die before killing all the enemies, you can simply finish the quest, fast travel back to the main area, pick it up again, rinse and repeat the process. It's a little slower that way because of the fast travel screen, which also can crash your game, but really, this game can just crash whenever it feels like it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and this makes it easier to 100% the game, so then you have the game 100%ed, and if you don't want to play it, you don't have to deal with the crashing. Until next time, stay frosty.